Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. You guys know what time it is. Time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. And today I'm going to do something a little bit different. Someone linked me a purely informative video, and really it's really rudimentary information. And a lot of people might say, Jason, this isn't really the normal sort of stuff you would cover here. Why would you cover such a video covering these basic things? And it's like, well, pretty good reason, because a lot of people who come here don't watch everything I have. I have thousands and thousands of subscribers who haven't been here for 3 or 4 years. I have thousands of subscribers who don't bench 300, don't deadlift 500, who haven't been training for years, who actually might believe that things like post-workout recovery shakes are useful, or that branched-chain amino acids are useful, or that think that actual fasted cardio burns more body fat. Right? They might think these things. And so when you see something like this with a bunch of serious athletic trainers being reviewed on an actual science-based channel who are going over some of the most common myths they see, what does that tell us? That tells us that, maybe this is stuff that people need to know about. And I thought I would just kind of go down this list because I thought they were a pretty good set of myths that needed to be busted. So let me kind of look at the first one, and I'll go down the row and just read them out. All right, number one, unused muscle turns to fat. Yeah, that's not true. That's absolutely impossible. Even the first guy said there, again, because these are people who all have professional athletic backgrounds, advanced degrees in the field. Like, no, that's not even biologically possible. There's no way the human body is even capable of doing that. Now, a lot of that's going to come over to things like muscle mass and metabolism. What happens if we have a lot of muscle? We burn more calories. We're probably used to eating more food than other people. What happens if you stop working out and you lose, say, 25 pounds of muscle? You get fat really easily. I went through that. I got sick. I spent 10 months in bed. 10 months in bed. And at that point, before that, I was just as big as I am now, if not bigger in terms of muscle mass, because this was over a decade ago. I spent 10 months in bed sick, got depressed, ate even more food than normal because it was being brought to me, treat foods, and I lost muscle mass rapidly while in bed sick. I gained an enormous amount of body fat. It wasn't the muscle turning to fat, it was the fact that I was burning less calories and then eating more, and I got really fat as a result of it. These things happen. So what happens when you see someone who used to lift and then they get fat later, oftentimes it's because, well, they just eat more as they get older and they've lost large amounts of muscle, so they burn less calories than they're used to, and over time that can cause you, if you're eating the same amount of food, to just get fat. That's how it works. Not that complicated. Myth number two, morning workouts are better. And again, this comes over to the whole fasted thing, or that you burn more fat in the morning. It's not true, not based on reality. In fact, when you come over to the whole fasted cardio thing, that's been debunked and studied. That's been studied by serious experts. And they've all determined that not only do you lose less body fat during fasted cardio, that in some cases you might burn a little bit less calories. That some people actually use less total energy, so technically it's inferior. And it's because you have less energy. And we'll get to some of that in a minute, that cardio burns calories. So in theory, the more calories you burn with cardio, if your calories are staying the same, the more fat you lose. But if you just replace those calories, you don't lose any fat. You don't lose any fat from doing the cardio. But the whole fasted cardio thing isn't based on reality. And the reason a lot of bodybuilders get away with it is because they're using copious amounts of fat-burning drugs and nutrient partitioning drugs. And it is argued that in some cases, the fasted cardio, it combined with certain illicit substances, could cause a tiny little bit of additional fat burning. But it's not going to be a whole lot. So again, complete myth. Number three, stretching before a workout prevents injury. Yeah, that's not true. In fact, it increases injury risk and it makes you weaker. And that's one of the things that he pointed out there, that you make yourself loose. If you do static stretching before any sort of lifting, you can actually create laxness in the joints and you can increase your chances of injury. And he didn't go into the fact that it impedes performance. Static stretching has been shown in a number of studies decades ago to reduce performance. You're not going to be able to lift as much weight if you stretch first. Just a little pro tip for people who aren't aware of that. It can actually reduce your strength, particularly if you're a particularly strong person. So it's not a good idea at all. There are other ways to dynamically warm up. Number four, you can target specific body parts. And they're talking about for body fat loss purposes, because obviously you can make specific muscles burn. That's also true. You can't target where you lose body fat. It's a big myth. Massive myth that people believe in. You can't decide where you lose body fat. The only way you can do that is with liposuction. Like you can liposuction and surgically have a chunk of fat removed, but you can't pick where your body burns it. It's genetic and hormonal. Now, people are going to say, well, doesn't that mean that certain hormones in the body, if used exogenously, could affect the ratios? Yes, in theory. In theory, they could. But that's not a very good practical solution for most people because most of the substances that do that are, number one, illegal without a prescription. Number two, are ridiculously expensive. Number three, that's only hypothetical. It's only hypothetical. That's not actually proven. That's a hypothesis. So you're better to just lose body fat in general. Number five, cardio burns fat. Yeah, that's true. Cardio doesn't burn fat. In fact, plenty of really, really lean people do zero cardio. I know people who have phenomenal physiques who do zero cardio. I know people who are morbidly obese who use large amounts of cardio. As was pointed out in the video, cardio burns calories. If it becomes a useful tool to help you create a caloric deficit, because you monitor your diet and add the physical activity, it can be a valuable weight management tool. It can be a valuable fat loss tool. But cardio in and of itself doesn't burn fat, it just burns more calories. Just like having more muscle burns more calories. It affects your energy turnover. But doing too much of it can actually injure you, can cause problems, everything else. And if you're doing cardio in place of resistance training, if you have more recovery to do resistance training, in the long term, the resistance training is going to be better for your health. And it's going to be better for your weight management because it's going to increase your metabolism more. Like doing just cardio with almost no weight training is really not a good method for losing body fat over time. It's actually one of the worst methods. And again, from a health perspective, it's not even close to ideal. And I'm not saying cardio is not healthy because implementing some cardio into your daily lifestyle can have health benefits. Like no one's arguing against that. But arguing that it is an extremely valuable fat loss tool, well, no. I mean, you can gain plenty of fat while doing hours of cardio a day. Totally doable if you out-eat what you're burning. It's just another tool in the toolbox that if used correctly can be helpful, but it's not essential and it's not going to guarantee success. It's any other tool. You've got to use the tool correctly. Next one, muscle weighs more than fat. Right, that's also not true. It weighs what it weighs. It's that it's more dense. And when people think that it's more dense, it's not a lot more dense than you think. Like it's not something like a pound of fat is twice the size of a pound of muscle. Right? It's nothing extreme like that. That's kind of one of those myths that it's a big difference between it. No, it really isn't as much as you would think. Like I saw some figures at one point that is something only like 20% difference in the size. I would need to go back and look at it again, but I think it was no more than 20% in terms of actual volume of a pound of fat versus a pound of muscle. So if you are getting visibly, your dimensions are going down, you're probably losing weight, even if you're gaining muscle. You are getting more dense in terms of the tissues, but no, it's not this enormous difference between the two. But they weigh what they weigh. Myth number 7, the scale measures progress. Well, it can, and I think what they pointed out there, we kind of come back over to that point. That's one of the big things that you teach noobs, right? You teach noobs and novice lifters who are capable of making significant recomposition that the scale isn't everything. But I think when we're talking about that, we need to remember that we're talking about generally healthy populations who want to lose 10 pounds of body fat, okay? Because if you're morbidly obese, if you're 30 pounds overweight, you are never going to gain 30 pounds of muscle in the next 2 years. You're not going to do it. You would require hefty doses of drugs to pull that off. So if you have this idea that the scale doesn't matter when you have a significant amount of body fat to lose, you're not living in the real world. Because they point that out, and people always point that out in the news, but I've also met people who needed to lose 50 pounds to even be at a healthy weight who would say stuff like, oh, I want to lose fat, not weight. And it's like, you're going to have to lose 50 pounds of weight. So you have to remember that, though. But as we get more advanced as lifters, the scale does matter more and more because you're not going to see 10 pounds of recomposition in any short period of time. It's just not going to happen. So the scale does matter, but again, as they pointed out, recomposition is possible. And if you're gaining muscle early on, in the long term, it's going to equal better fat loss due to better metabolism. Myth number 8, women get bulky when they lift. Yeah, not true. And here's what I hate. I like that they addressed it, and I like that they had a female trainer address this, but I hate that no one says that every woman who's bulky uses anabolics. They're injecting male hormones in their body. It's not possible for women to get bulky who aren't pinning. And they never want to say that because they don't want to call all these women out, but most natural bodybuilders still use steroids, and that includes the women. Again, I don't know what delusional world people live in where they think that there's strict drug testing in natural bodybuilding. It's not like the Olympics. In the Olympics, still there are cheaters. Natural bodybuilding doesn't have good enough testing to catch anybody who has two brain cells to rub together. You can use 17 different drugs and still pass those drug tests. Okay, so even the naturals, they're still on gear. Total bullshit. So in other words, women need to be weight training, and she went into quite a bit of detail on that as far as why they need to, and I agree that's true in women. They're not going to get bulky. Strength training requires a gym. I didn't like that myth. I'm going to disagree. You're never going to get strong with body weight exercises. Now, people would be like, Jason, you're really biased. Yeah, because I don't consider someone who can do 10 chin-ups to be strong. If you can do 50 body weight squats, you're not strong. Okay, that's not strong. You have to have external resistance to get strong. Unless you weigh 800 pounds of body weight, you're never going to get strong with just your body weight. So that's one of those myths I'm going to disagree with. We're talking about a ranked novice. Okay, someone who's never trained before, you're sedentary. You can gain strength that way, but you're never going to be brutally strong off of purely body weight movements. And it's not even the best way to program. There's all sorts of overuse issues if you're not careful, if you even try to do it that way. But calisthenic type movements are good. They're a good part of a routine. They definitely have their place. I use plenty of weighted body weight movements myself, so I'm not against that in any way, but it certainly can't be the core of your strength training. I don't know where they're getting that. Number 10, crunches give you a six-pack. Yeah, that's not true either. Very, very little that you do for your abs makes them grow. You have to have really, really heavy training for your abs to get significantly bigger. I have fairly big abs, but it's also, you guys need to look at what I do. The average person who goes to a gym is never going to load their abs with the sort of tension and weight that I do. So you got that, and as they point out, abs are made in the kitchen. That's true. Let's come back over to the fat loss thing. You have to get lean and lose fat to see your abs. Doesn't matter how much you train them, and since you can't spot reduce, that's not the key to a six-pack. We train our abs for better performance. I mean, realistically, if you're training abs thinking you're going to make them look a lot better, you're wasting your time. If you're training abs because you want a specific performance benefit, I'm all for it. I train my abs. I do like 10 sets of weighted sit-ups every week and all sorts of core stuff. So, again, got to put it in perspective. Number 11, the more sweat, the better the workout. Not true, not based on any reality, so I don't want to get into all that one. Sports drinks are the best way to rehydrate. No, not really. They're absolutely not. The best way to rehydrate is with salts and waters. Salt is your friend. And I didn't even remember what they said on that one. Next one, power down protein post-workout. Yeah, also a myth. I'm not saying we don't need a lot of protein. Protein has benefits. I believe in protein overfeeding. But that window of opportunity, that's not based on the modern science. That was very, very, very biased data that's not applicable to the real world, that supplement companies sponsor to make people think that they have to have it or that they're going to gain more muscle from it or that it's essential. Not really true. Myth 14, just keep going, no breaks. Yeah, also bullshit. Myth 15, no pain, no gain. I'm going to agree with that one also. We shouldn't be feeling any sort of pain. Like if you're getting too much DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness, the next day after training, you probably need to adjust your training programming. Meaning I could write protocols that will make you sore, but they're not necessarily going to give you better results. And if you're feeling pain in the gym, that's not a good thing. And when we start getting any sort of tendonitis and stuff like that, it's time to rotate exercises. So I'm saying that as an advanced strength athlete, that the moment I feel any discomfort the next day somewhere in any of my training, I adjust my training because that's not necessary, it's not beneficial, and in some cases it's undesirable. It can actually hurt your progress and cause injuries. Myth 16, you'll see huge results in 1 month. Yeah, not going to happen. Most of the big transformations you see involve a lot of lighting, a lot of trickery, lots of drugs, and again, Photoshop and all sorts of stuff that people do to manipulate what they're doing to see some of these transformations. You as the average person, hey, if in the first month, 30 days in the gym, you lose, 5 pounds of body fat and gain half a pound of muscle, that's phenomenal. That should be amazing. You should really, really be proud of yourself if you pull something like that off. But that's not going to be a huge transformation. Fitness and training is a lifelong endeavor. Miss 17 there, good and bad workouts. I'm going to approach that topic differently maybe than they did. I believe that a good workout is one where you hit your target programmed numbers, and a bad workout is one where something goes wrong and you miss them. That's how I define a good and a bad workout, right? Not by how you feel, not by how you sweated. Did you reach all of your target specific program numbers that your coach wrote for you or that you programmed for yourself? If you did, that is a 100% perfect workout. If you missed any of them, that's a terrible workout. That's how I view it personally. That you might need to reevaluate something going on in your life, something got missed in your training programming. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.